Mystery. Today we're going to talk about dialogue. It's something that gets so many writers stuck, and we're going to drill down on how to make your dialogue sound real. So first I want to thank my patrons at Patreon who give their support. I want to thank them very much. And so let's just jump right in and talk about dialogue and flat characters. I mean, flat dialogue really comes from flat characters and not knowing your characters well in the scene that you're writing. So if you're struggling with dialogue, you may force yourself instead of allowing the characters to speak. And many new writers freeze when the story calls for dialogue, thinking they have to write dialogue. Somehow dialogue lives in some separate category over there that feels outside of story writing, and they're just like Jim said and Ellie said, and your reader's bored. So how do you get your dialogue to feel real and to speak to your reader? Now, I've said this before, and I think it's really important. You have to think of dialogue as action. It's one more thing your character does. When you write an action scene, you know your character's emotions and goals, and the character takes action based on those emotions and goals. For instance, in a fight scene, a character may feel fear and a strong desire to win, to fight to save her life, and she'll use anything at hand and her wits in the combat. And the opponent has similar motivations: hatred of the character, a desire to eliminate the character. So you want to use that same technique to motivate your character's dialogue. When you consider your character's emotional state and their goals, you'll find it easier to write dialogue that corresponds with your character's personality, emotions, and goals. Dialogue may not seem as dramatic as a fight scene, but what characters say have the power to move the story forward, create immediate conflict, and stir the reader's curiosity to find out what happens next. That's what you always want your readers to be doing. They want to go keep turning pages. What's going to happen next? So let's look at some steps to make your dialogue sound real, because each section of dialogue belongs to a certain scene. So you know the characters that are in that scene. You know who speaks and who listens. You know if the dialogue is intimate or public. And just as you know a character's goal for the story, you need to know the character's goal for that particular scene. So when you're choosing the right dialogue, the words and the phrases, there's some steps you can take to know your character's emotions and goals as you begin the scene, and anchor you, the writer, in the moment in the scene. And understanding each character helps you create the words and phrases that the character says in the scene moment. That's it. While you're writing, you're right there in the scene in that moment. You don't have to worry about what comes before or what comes after. Right now, you're in the scene. So at the beginning of the scene, each character has something they want right now, something they want to happen in that scene. And that's their agenda. It's what they want. It's what moves the scene. Because oftentimes, characters' agenda, their goal, are at conflict with another character's goal. And the other thing is, characters may want or not want to reveal that agenda. Just because they're holding that agenda doesn't mean they're going to reveal it to other characters. So in a mystery, the sleuth may want to get information about the victim from a suspect, and the suspect wants to hide how much they despise the victim. So once you know that character's agenda, their goal, now you need to know why, the why behind the character's action, dialogue in the scene is the way they want to achieve their agenda. Think of it as because. Because the detective wants to solve the crime and believes the suspect can give him clues, he asks questions. Those questions are his action dialogue, all right? And because the suspect wants to hide her hatred, her answers relate to the victim's professional life, not her previous affair with the victim who manipulated her. So in order to hide her hatred, she omits that history from her answers. So we have the agenda, we have the why, and now, right now, at this moment, what is that character's emotional state? Because whatever their agenda, their emotional state will color what they say. Consider the various emotions each character brings to the scene right now, and you aren't limited to one. This is where some people get stuck. They was like, he's angry. You aren't limited to one. So the detective feels harried. He feels pressured to solve the case because there's outside forces, and defeated because nothing so far has pointed to the villain. And the suspect feels apprehensive that the detective will probe and afraid that her cover-up will be penetrated, and confident in her acting skills. So if you're already thinking of the questions and answers these two will have, that's exactly how you approach dialogue that comes from a character's goals and feelings. So what do they feel right now in the scene? And find that emotional state of the character as they speak. You want to stay with the emotional state because it can change as the dialogue continues. The detective may feel aggressive or resolved or discouraged. The suspect may feel intimidated, confident, sly. Just depends on that moment in the scene. So stay with that emotion and let that emotion guide what the character says. So keep working with the feelings, and they'll change as the dialogue continues, with each character aiming for their goal and being frustrated by the other's ability to frustrate the goal. And so now it's getting intense. They're back and forth, and now you need to think about how will the character get what they want. And remember, each person speaking has an agenda, and each person speaking has something they want to get. So how are they going to get what they want? And with the agenda in mind and the current feelings, each character tries to reach their goal. But as the other character keeps them from reaching their goal, each character will try to turn the scene so he gets what he wants. And the detective may shift from flattering to direct questions, or vice versa, and the suspect may shift from flirtatious to factual statements, or the other way around. You have total control over how you work that scene and what your characters say. So as the writer, you can play with how each character responds to the dialogue of the other character, keeping in mind that they want that thing that they want, and they're going to do whatever they can. And do is an operative word. They're going to do whatever they can to reach their personal goal. So that's why I think if you keep thinking of dialogue as action, they're going to say what they need to say to get what they want. So what's going to force them to change? Now, as we get to the crux of the scene and all through the dialogue, each character must change either their emotions or their agenda to change how they talk to the other character. And you've been building up to the major conflict of the scene, and now something has to give. Somebody has to win, somebody has to lose. So when one or both of the characters will change their behavior, their action, in order to resolve the conflict. The suspect may clam up or decide to reveal her past history. It's up to you. And the sleuth may press for answers or leave without getting the answers he wants. It's all up to you. But to create conflict and move the story forward, your characters must make a change. So then how do they feel at the end of the dialogue? And by the end of the scene, the characters will have different feelings than those at the beginning because the conflict turned things around. Will your detective feel triumphant and ready to move forward, or will he feel more pressure and disappointment? And will the suspect sigh with relief because her tactic worked, or throw a tantrum because the detective pierced her secret? So basically, good dialogue stems from character motivation and feelings. Know your character. It's the best way that you can write dialogue that feels right for that character, emotionally charged, because you know their goals and feelings. So get them to take the action of speaking to work toward their goal. And when you approach dialogue as action, based on a character's current emotional state and their goal, you'll find dialogue flows. It won't be so hard. And because each character has different and sometimes opposing goals and feelings, the words they speak will feel true to that character. So you'll avoid flat dialogue, enrich each scene, and keep your reader wondering what's going to happen next. For me, it's easy to get lost in reading new books, and for writers, it pays to read masters of the craft. This week, I listened to Ross Macdonald's Meet Me at the Morgue on Audible. He was a master of dialogue and also the turn of phrase or simile or a metaphor that adds an emotional twist to the description. Mystery writers do well to read the masters. Listening on Audible brings every word to life. So you can get your 30-day free trial by checking the link in the description below. I'll see you next week. Keep writing.